Welcome back to another great Cadet Rob 1985 video. Today we're going to do a much requested U.S. Marine Corps enlisted ranks video. Alright, I will include all of my references in the box below. And so if you know of any references that show any earlier ranks or ranks that I have missing, please put those in the comments below. Alright, we're going to start off with the earliest I know about, and that is the American Revolutionary War era. And during that time, the Marines wore green uniform jackets with white facing. But as far as insignia, they were divided into privates, fifers, corporals, and sergeants, but had no insignia. Then during the early Republic era, they added the sergeant, orderly sergeant, the fife major and drum major, quartermaster sergeant, and the sergeant major. But again, that the enlisted Marines still had no insignia during the period up until 1883. In 1884, this is the first insignia that I've been able to find, and this would be during that Mexican War era. And during that time, the Marines, through the Mexican War, the Civil War, all the way through the Spanish-American War, they wore basically a very simple, similar to the Army insignia of corporal with two chevrons, the sergeant with three, the first sergeant, or sometimes called an orderly sergeant. These terms were used kind of interchangeably. With the three chevrons and the diamond or lozenge. Then the quartermaster sergeant with the three chevrons and the three bars. And then the sergeant major with three chevrons and three bent bars or three rockers. In the Spanish-American era, they went with the same things, but then the gunnery sergeant was added with the little exploding bomb with cross rifles. In between the sergeant and the first sergeant, but other than that, they're basically the same. All right, in World War One, again, the chevrons, the insignia seems to mimic or mirror that of the Army. You're going to see that as a trend throughout, but you now have the private with the crossed lances, and then lance corporal with a single chevron. This is similar to what the Army had at the same time. Corporal, sergeant, gunnery sergeant, first sergeant, drum major with the little star in there, a paymaster, which has a little quill insignia, the quartermaster sergeant, and then the sergeant major. And these are kind of a gray-green on red backgrounds. So then in 1922, now we start to see the chevrons more closely to what we know today as very traditional looking Marine Corps chevrons. And it also brings in the 7-grade pay system that you're going to see throughout the military in this era. So grade 7 is a private, grade 6 the private first class, the lance corporal disappears, and then we have the corporal, the sergeant, staff sergeant and platoon sergeant at grade 3, gunnery sergeant and first sergeant in grade 2, and then master gunnery and sergeant major at grade 1. And then also at the same time they bring in the technical sergeants and the paymaster sergeant and the master technical sergeant. So you're going to start to see this insignia start to balloon out with a lot of different ones all throughout the 1920s. This is the same thing that happened in the Army. Started very simply, but then as you go through the 1920s into the 1930s, you start to see a ballooning of insignia, just an incredible number of insignia. Not so much in the Marines as the Army, but still probably the most insignia they ever had. In the 30s, you get the cook, assistant cook, the mess corporal, the mess sergeant, the staff sergeant of the mess, and the technical sergeant of the mess, and the master technical sergeant of the mess. And then you also have your supply sergeant and quartermaster sergeants, and then your whole band. You have your trumpeters, trumpet her first class, your corporal, your trumpet sergeant, and then your musician first class, as well as your drum major, and then your drummer and drum corporal and drum sergeant. So quite a few insignias that in the 1940s they try to simplify this down. It started World War I to make it a lot simpler and more streamlined and more similar to what we see today. Okay, so you're also going to see some of these titles are still used for these different grades, right? But the insignia is streamlined. So grade 6, of course, is the private first class or assistant cook, field musician first class. Grade 5 is your corporal or your mess corporal, right? And grade 4 is a sergeant, mess sergeant, field music sergeant. And then grade 3 is divided, right? You have your staff sergeant, which is more of a technical position, right? Administrative, and your platoon sergeant, which is, more of a field leader. And then the same thing going all the way up. Grade 2, you have your technical sergeant, supply sergeant, drum major, right? And then your first sergeant and your gunnery sergeant. And then grade 1, you have your master technical sergeant, quartermaster sergeant, paymaster sergeant, right? And then you also have your sergeant major and your master gunnery sergeant. Okay, so moving forward, the Marine Corps was a little slower than some of the other services that did this in the 40s, but they switched over from the 7-grade system to the 9 grades, right, which is what we have today. The E system, right? E standing for enlisted. So you have E1 through E9, and they may have sort of papered over the previous 7 grades with the E system, but I can't find any reference to that. What I know is that in 1959 they switched over the insignia, and now we are seeing the more modern with the lances right underneath. You have your the cross rifles or lances. So you have your private first class and your lance corporal returning, corporal, sergeant, staff sergeant, gunnery sergeant, master sergeant, right? So these are all similar, ranks. And then you have your first sergeant with the diamond, your master gunnery sergeant with the ordnance symbol, and then your sergeant major with the star. All right. Then in the 70s, we add on the sergeant major of the Marine Corps, as all the other services were doing. The sergeant major or the high enlisted position, depending on the service, whatever they call it in that service. And then that brings us all the way up to 2020, when this is the first time that they added a new position, and that is the senior enlisted advisor to the chairman. Right. So both sergeant major of the Marine Corps and assistant senior enlisted advisor chairman are singular positions. Right. Only one Marine holds these positions. Right. And so there's the sergeant major of the Marine Corps. That is a singular person, and so isn't the senior enlisted advisor to the chairman. And then I just wanted to include some alternatives, insignia, right? The green on red stripes, and then the green on khaki stripes, and then also the black, subdued black metal insignia, just to show you the variety. And most of these have a long tradition in the Corps of back into the 60s and 70s, the multiple ones, and some even all the way back into the World War II era of these different color insignia. All right, hope you like this video. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, and hope to bring you more great videos just like this one.